Valentine's Day had never announced itself to Samantha with excitement. It arrived quietly, like something that didn't need her attention because it was never meant for her anyway. She noticed it first at the corner grocery store on her way home from work. The aisles were drenched in red. Heart-shaped balloons hovered near the ceiling. Boxes of chocolates promised forever. Cards whispered, "You are my everything," to people who still believed in those words. Samantha stood in line, holding a small basket against her coat. In front of her, a man bought roses, not a simple bouquet, long-stemmed, expensive, carefully wrapped. He added a box of truffles and a card he didn't even read before placing it on the counter. The cashier smiled. "Someone's going to be very happy tonight." The man smiled back, the easy kind of smile that comes from being expected somewhere. Samantha looked down at her own basket. Bread, milk, pasta, and a small bag of heart-shaped cookies. Generic, cheap, meant for the office break room. She had bought them without thinking. She always brought something. She always remembered others. The cashier rang up her items and glanced at the screen. "Happy Valentine's Day." Samantha returned a polite smile. "Thank you." The words felt borrowed, like a line she was supposed to say even though it didn't belong to her. Outside, the city felt louder. Couples filled the sidewalks, hands intertwined, shoulders brushing. Someone laughed too hard. Someone else stopped to take a picture beneath a glowing neon sign that simply read, "Love." Samantha walked past them all. She told herself she wasn't bitter, that she was just tired, that being alone didn't hurt anymore. It was familiar, and familiar things didn't sting as sharply. That was mostly true. Mostly. She reached the park a few blocks from her apartment without really deciding to go there. It was a habit from years ago, from a time when she still believed that fresh air could reset her thoughts. Benches lined the path, dusted lightly with winter frost. Strings of lights hung from the bare trees, blinking softly in the early evening. Families passed by. Couples sat close together. A child ran ahead, dragging a red balloon behind him. Samantha chose an empty bench. She sat down and finally let herself stop moving. That was when it hit her. Not all at once, but slowly, like cold seeping through fabric. No message waiting on her phone. No plans. No reason to rush home. Valentine's Day wasn't just about romance. She knew that. People loved to say it was about all kinds of love. Friends, family, self-love. But sitting there, watching everyone else be chosen by someone, Samantha felt the familiar truth settle in her chest. She wasn't chosen by anyone. She pressed her lips together, staring at the ground, telling herself to breathe, to get through the next few minutes, and then stand up and go home. But her eyes burned anyway. A tear slipped down before she could stop it, then another. She wiped them quickly, embarrassed, even though no one seemed to be looking. That was when a small voice spoke beside her. "Ma'am?" Samantha flinched slightly and looked up. Two little girls stood in front of her, bundled in matching coats, their faces nearly identical except for the way their eyes studied her. Curious, serious, concerned. "Are you okay?" one of them asked. Samantha opened her mouth to answer, and for the first time that day, she didn't know what to say. Samantha hesitated for a second too long. "I'm fine," she said, finally, forcing the words into place. "Really." The girls didn't move.
One of them tilted her head slightly, studying Samantha's face with an intensity that made it impossible to look away. "You're crying," she said plainly. Her sister nodded. "And it's Valentine's Day." Samantha let out a quiet breath, half a laugh without humor. "I just got something in my eye," she replied, reaching up to wipe her cheeks again. The girls exchanged a look. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't exaggerated, just a quick glance, like they were checking something with each other, confirming a thought. "That's not how people look when something's in their eye," the first girl said. Samantha blinked. The second girl stepped a little closer. Not too close, just enough to lower her voice. "Are you alone?" The question landed harder than Samantha expected. She could have dodged it. She usually did. She had perfected polite half-answers over the years. "I'm okay. I'm busy. I'm fine, really." But something about the way the girls were looking at her, open, unguarded, made lying feel unnecessary. "Yes," she said quietly, "I am." The girls went still. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then the first girl frowned. "That's not good," she said. "Not on Valentine's Day," the second one added seriously. Samantha smiled despite herself. "Well, it happens." The girls didn't seem convinced. "Who are you waiting for?" one asked. "No one," Samantha replied. Another pause. "Oh," the first girl said, as if that explained everything. They stood there for a moment longer, shifting slightly in their boots, clearly unsure what to do next, but just as clearly unwilling to walk away. Then the second girl straightened. "Wait here," she said. Samantha frowned. "What?" "We'll be right back," the girl continued, already turning. "Don't leave." Before Samantha could protest, both girls hurried off down the path, their matching coats bouncing as they ran. She stared after them, confused. Children were strange, she decided, honest in ways adults forgot how to be, unafraid to ask questions that were supposed to stay unasked. She glanced around, half expecting a parent to appear and apologize for the interruption. Instead, a man came jogging toward her a moment later, concern written clearly across his face. "Girls?" he called out, slowing as he reached them. "What did I tell you about running off?" The girls stopped in front of him, talking over each other immediately. "She's sad," one said, pointing directly at Samantha. "And she's alone," the other added. The man followed their gaze. His eyes met Samantha's. She felt an unexpected jolt of embarrassment and quickly looked away, straightening on the bench. "I'm so sorry," the man said, stepping closer. "They didn't bother you, did they?" "No," Samantha replied quickly. "They were just talking." The girls frowned at him. "We were helping," one of them said. The man sighed softly, rubbing a hand over his face. "You can't just approach strangers like that." "She was crying," the second girl said, matter of fact. The man's expression shifted, not disbelief, recognition. He looked back at Samantha, gentler now. "I'm Ethan, and I apologize if they crossed a line." Samantha shook her head. "It's okay, really." The girls watched closely as Ethan spoke, waiting. "She doesn't have a Valentine," one of them announced. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. "Girls?" "It's true," the other said. "She said she's alone." Ethan hesitated, then looked back at Samantha. "I hope you don't mind them being honest." Samantha surprised herself by smiling. "I don't mind." The girls visibly relaxed. "I'm Lily," one of them said, holding out her gloved hand. "And I'm Grace," the other added, doing the same. Samantha shook their hands carefully. "I'm Samantha." "Miss Samantha," Grace corrected quickly, as if remembering something important. "Yes," Samantha said softly. "Miss Samantha is fine." Lily climbed onto the bench beside her without asking. Grace followed, claiming the other side. Ethan started to protest, then stopped. He watched the three of them, his daughters sitting close to a woman they'd just met, Samantha frozen somewhere between surprise and something warmer. Lily swung her legs slightly. "Do you always sit here?" "Sometimes," Samantha answered. "On Valentine's Day?" "Today was an exception."
Grace looked up at her. "Valentine's Day is hard," she said. Ethan stiffened slightly. Samantha noticed. "Yes," she agreed gently. "It can be." The girls leaned closer, as if that answer confirmed something they already knew. After a moment, Lily slid off the bench and tugged at Ethan's sleeve. "Daddy," she said in a whisper that wasn't really a whisper, "she shouldn't be alone." Grace nodded. "Not today." Ethan looked down at his daughters, then back at Samantha. Something unreadable passed through his expression. He opened his mouth to speak, and whatever he was about to say would change everything.
Ethan had already decided what he was going to say. He would thank Samantha for being patient. He would apologize again for the interruption. He would take Lily and Grace home before they said something else inappropriate. That was the plan. But plans had a way of falling apart the moment his daughters decided they weren't finished. "She looks like you," Grace said suddenly. Ethan blinked. "Like me?" Grace nodded. "When you think you're fine, but you're not." Lily looked between them. "You get that face sometimes, especially on holidays." Ethan felt his chest tighten. "Okay," he said gently, lowering his voice. "That's enough." Samantha shifted on the bench, clearly uncomfortable. "I really don't want to cause any trouble," she said. "You're not," Ethan replied quickly. "They just—" he exhaled. "They notice things." "That's not always a good thing," Samantha said with a small, understanding smile. Ethan studied her face for a moment. There was no judgment there, no pity, just something steady. "I was actually just heading home with them. We were on our way back from the store." Lily frowned. "You forgot the balloons." "That was intentional," Ethan said. "Valentine's Day needs balloons," Grace argued. Ethan gave Samantha an apologetic look. "Debatable." Samantha smiled, the tension easing just a little. They sat in silence for a moment, watching people pass by. Couples, families, teenagers holding hands like the world hadn't disappointed them yet. "So," Ethan said finally, "do you live around here?" "Yes, a few blocks away." "That park has a way of pulling people in. I come here when the girls need space to run, or when I need to think." Grace looked up at Samantha. "Do you come here to think too?" Samantha considered the question. "I think I come here so I don't have to." The girls seemed to accept that answer. Lily leaned closer. "My mommy used to sit on benches like this." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Lily—" "It's okay," Samantha said quickly, instinctively. "I don't mind." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "She liked watching people," Lily continued. "She said you could learn a lot by seeing who walks fast and who walks slow." Grace added, "Mommy walked slow." Samantha swallowed. "That sounds like someone who paid attention." Ethan looked at her, surprised. "She did," he said quietly. Another pause. "I'm sorry," Samantha said, "about your wife." Ethan nodded once. 4 years. The words were simple, but the weight behind them was heavy. Grace reached for Ethan's hand. Lily did the same. Samantha noticed how naturally he adjusted, holding both at once. "I used to hate Valentine's Day," Lily said. "Now it's just weird." "It's pink, too pink," Grace added. Ethan let out a breath that was almost a laugh. "We usually just make dinner and stay in." "That sounds nice," Samantha said. Ethan looked at her again, this time more carefully. It wasn't attraction, not yet. It was recognition. "You don't sound like someone who likes big celebrations," Ethan said. "I don't. I like quiet and honest." The girls exchanged another look. "That's good," Grace said. "Why?" asked Samantha. "Because Daddy doesn't like pretending either," Lily answered. Ethan opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. "Girls," he said softly, "we don't know Miss Samantha." Lily shrugged. "We know she's sad." Grace nodded. "And nice." Samantha felt her throat tighten. Ethan stood there, caught between protecting boundaries and respecting something real happening in front of him. "I don't usually do this," he said slowly, choosing his words. "But would you like to walk with us for a bit? Just around the park?"
Samantha hesitated. She had 100 reasons to say no. She had said no to 100 small invitations before. But for once, the answer didn't come from fear. "I'd like that," she said. Lily smiled. "Told you." Grace squeezed Samantha's hand, and as they started walking together, Ethan had the strange thought that maybe this Valentine's Day had already changed, quietly, without anyone asking it to.
They walked slowly. Not because the park was crowded, but because no one felt the need to rush. Lily skipped ahead, stopping every few steps to balance on the edge of the path. Grace stayed closer, occasionally brushing her glove against Samantha's coat, as if to make sure she was still there. Ethan walked on Samantha's other side, careful not to invade her space. The lights in the trees flickered softly above them. "This is where we usually turn back," Ethan said after a moment, nodding toward a bend in the path. "We can turn back," Samantha replied immediately. He hesitated. "We don't have to. I just didn't want you to feel trapped." The word landed heavier than he intended. Samantha met his eyes. "I don't," she said. "I promise." They continued. A couple passed them, laughing, the woman holding a bouquet wrapped in pink paper. Lily watched them go. "Do you think flowers ever get tired?" she asked. Grace considered this seriously. "Probably. They always look like they're trying really hard." Samantha smiled. "I think you're right." Ethan glanced at her. "They have a lot of theories." "They're good ones," Samantha said. The girls beamed. They reached a quieter stretch of the park, where the noise from the street faded. A bench sat beneath a bare tree, its branches wrapped in tiny white lights. Grace stopped. "Daddy," she said, pointing. "This bench." "Okay," Ethan nodded. They all sat. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Grace asked softly, "Why do grown-ups cry when they think no one's looking?" Samantha's breath caught. Ethan stiffened. "Grace." "It's okay," Samantha said gently. "That's a good question." Grace looked up at her. "Is it because it hurts more when people see?" Samantha thought about all the times she had swallowed words, smiled through things she shouldn't have had to carry alone. "Yes," she said quietly. "I think so." Lily frowned. "That's not fair." "No," Samantha agreed. "It isn't." Ethan watched her, something unreadable in his expression. "My wife used to say that some things hurt more when they're witnessed." The girls went quiet. Samantha turned toward him. "She sounds wise." "She was," Ethan replied. Then, after a pause, "She got sick when the girls were very young. By the time they were old enough to remember clearly, she was already tired all the time." Lily stared at the ground. "She didn't like hospitals." "No," Ethan said. "She didn't." Grace leaned into his side. "But she liked us." He wrapped an arm around both girls. "She loved you." The words were steady, practiced. He had said them many times before. Samantha felt the familiar ache of recognizing grief she hadn't lived, but understood. "I'm sorry," she said softly. Ethan nodded. "Thank you." Silence settled again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. After a moment, Lily looked at Samantha. "What about you, Miss Samantha?" Ethan glanced at her quickly. "You don't have to." "It's okay," Samantha said. She stared ahead at the lights, choosing her words carefully. "I didn't lose someone the way your daddy did, but I lost something too." Grace tilted her head. What? Samantha swallowed. The feeling that I mattered to someone. Ethan's jaw tightened. I spent a long time being useful, being needed. And somewhere along the way, I stopped being chosen. The girls listened closely. That sounds lonely, Lily said. It was. Sometimes it still is. Grace reached out and placed her small hand over Samantha's. You don't look invisible. Samantha blinked back sudden tears. Ethan watched the moment carefully, not with fear, but with something like awe. You are very kind, he said to Samantha. She shook her head slightly. I think I just recognize the same quiet in other people. He nodded. Valentine's Day, Ethan said after a moment, is usually when that quiet gets loud. Samantha smiled sadly. Yes. The girls looked at each other. Then Lily slid off the bench and stood in front of Samantha, very serious. You shouldn't be alone tonight. Grace nodded firmly. Not on Valentine's Day. Ethan inhaled sharply, already preparing to explain boundaries, to soften the moment. But when he looked at Samantha, he saw no expectation there. Only the same quiet honesty she had offered all evening. And suddenly, he wasn't sure what the right thing was anymore.
Ethan felt the moment slip out of his control. He recognized that feeling. It was the same one he'd had years ago, standing in a hospital hallway, when life quietly decided something for him before he was ready. You shouldn't be alone tonight. Lily's words hung in the air, simple and absolute. Ethan cleared his throat. Okay, he said carefully, crouching slightly so he was eye level with them. That's not something we get to decide. Grace frowned. Why not? Because, he said gently, because grown-ups have plans and boundaries. Lily crossed her arms. But she doesn't have plans. Samantha winced, then gave a small apologetic smile. She's not wrong, but it's okay. Ethan straightened and looked at her. I'm sorry. They mean well, but I know, and I really appreciate it, truly. She meant it. The park lights flickered above them. Somewhere in the distance, music drifted from a restaurant celebrating too loudly. Grace tugged on Ethan's sleeve again. Daddy, she said, lowering her voice, we could just have dinner. Ethan sighed. Grace, just dinner, Lily added quickly, like normal. Ethan rubbed his temple. Samantha stood up, smoothing her coat. I should probably head home, she said. It was nice meeting you. She turned, already preparing herself for the familiar feeling, the moment where something almost happens and then doesn't. Wait. Ethan hadn't planned to say it. She turned back. He stopped, choosing his words carefully. I don't want you to feel pressured at all. I don't, Samantha said automatically. But, he continued, we're not doing anything special tonight, just dinner, the girls and me. Lily's eyes widened. And, Ethan added, if you'd like to join us, you're welcome. The world seemed to pause. Samantha stared at him, unsure she'd heard correctly. That's very kind, she said slowly, but I don't want to intrude. You wouldn't be intruding, Grace said immediately. No, Lily nodded, you'd be invited. Ethan let out a breath. They're persistent, he said, almost apologetically. Samantha smiled, but her heart was racing now. She hadn't been invited to something like this in a long time, not as an obligation, not as a favor, just invited. I don't want to make things awkward, honestly, for you or for them. Ethan met her gaze. You wouldn't, he said, then quieter, and if it is awkward, we'll survive.
The girls grinned. "See?" Lily said. "He said yes." Grace reached for Samantha's hand again, gentle this time. "Please," she said, "just tonight." Ethan watched Samantha for a moment, then nodded, as if sealing a quiet agreement with himself. "Then we should go," he said. "It's getting cold." They started walking toward the exit of the park together. As they reached the gate, Samantha hesitated. "This is your family's evening," she said softly. "If at any point you change your mind—" "I won't," she said. She searched his face. "I mean," he added, "I don't think I will." That was enough. Samantha followed them out of the park, aware of every step, every breath. She didn't know where the night would lead, but for the first time in a long while, she wasn't walking into the dark alone.
Ethan's house was modest. Not small, but lived in. The kind of place where shoes lined the doorway unevenly and coats hung wherever there was space. A faint smell of pasta and garlic lingered in the air, warm and familiar. "Home!" announced Grace as soon as the door closed behind them. Samantha stood just inside, suddenly unsure of where to put her hands, her bag, herself. "Make yourself comfortable," Ethan said, noticing immediately. "Kitchen's this way." Lily kicked off her boots and immediately started talking. "We were supposed to make heart-shaped pizza," she said. "But Daddy burned the last one," Grace added. "That was one time," Ethan said. "And it wasn't burned, it was enthusiastic." Samantha laughed before she could stop herself. The sound surprised her. Ethan noticed. Dinner was simple. Pasta, salad, bread still warm from the oven. No candles, no roses, no pressure to make the evening something it wasn't. They sat around the table, Lily and Grace talking over each other, correcting details, laughing when Ethan pretended to forget who spilled the water. Samantha listened more than she spoke. At one point, Grace looked at her. "You smile different here," she said. Samantha blinked. "Different how?" "Like you're not trying," Lily explained. Ethan paused, watching her closely now. After dinner, the girls cleared their plates without being asked, clearly a practiced routine. "Okay," Lily said, glancing at Grace. "Now." Ethan frowned. "Now what?" Grace grabbed Samantha's hand. "Come with us." "Oh," Samantha laughed nervously. "What's happening?" "You'll see," Lily said. They led her down the hallway to a small room just off the living area. The door was closed. Grace reached for the handle, then stopped. "Daddy, you too." Ethan followed, confused. Grace opened the door. The room was small, but transformed. Not flashy, not expensive. Handmade. Paper hearts taped unevenly to the walls. A banner drawn in marker that read, "Happy Valentine's Day, Samantha." A small table stood in the center with a single cupcake and a card. Samantha froze. "We made it," Lily said, proud me. "Just for you," Grace added. Samantha's breath caught. "For me?" she whispered. "Yes," Lily said, as if it were obvious. "Everyone gets a Valentine." Tears filled Samantha's eyes before she could stop them. Her voice broke. She pressed a hand to her mouth. "You didn't have to do this." Grace frowned. "We wanted to." Ethan stared at the room, stunned. "You planned this?" The girls nodded. "She doesn't have anyone," Lily said, "and she was sad, so we fixed it." Samantha crouched down in front of them, unable to hold it in anymore. "No one's ever done something like this for me," she said softly. Lily shrugged. "That's weird." Grace handed her the card. Inside were 2 crooked hearts and 4 words written carefully. "You matter too." Samantha broke. She pulled the girls into a hug, holding them close as tears spilled freely now. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." Ethan turned away for a moment, swallowing hard. When he looked back, his voice was quiet. They insisted, and they were right. Samantha wiped her eyes, standing slowly. "This is the best Valentine's Day I've ever had." The
The girls smiled like they had won something important. Later, after the girls were tucked into bed, Samantha stood by the door, coat in hand. "I should go," she said. "Thank you for tonight." Ethan nodded, then hesitated. "I'm really glad you came," he said. She met his eyes. "So am I." There was something different now. Not romance, not yet. Just the feeling that something had shifted, quietly and permanently. And as Samantha stepped out into the night, she realized something she hadn't felt in years. She wasn't invisible anymore.
The days after Valentine's Day passed quietly. No dramatic messages, no sudden confessions, just presence. Samantha found herself thinking about the twins more than she expected, about the way Grace tilted her head when she listened, about how Lily always tried to sound older than she was, and about Ethan. They didn't text every day. When they did, it was simple. The girls asked if you're okay. They're still talking about the cupcake. Samantha smiled every time. One afternoon, nearly a week later, her phone buzzed. "Ethan, I know this is last minute, but would you want to come over for dinner tonight? No pressure." She stared at the message longer than necessary, then typed back, "I'd like that." She arrived just before sunset. This time, the house felt familiar. Grace opened the door and hugged her without warning. "You came back," she said, satisfied. Lily nodded. "Told you she would." Dinner was quieter than last time. Comfortable. The kind of quiet that didn't need filling. Afterward, the girls disappeared to their room with homework, leaving Samantha and Ethan alone in the kitchen. Ethan leaned against the counter. "They like you," he said simply. Samantha smiled softly. "I like them too." He hesitated, then asked, "Can I ask you something personal?" She nodded. "Why were you alone on Valentine's Day?" Samantha looked down at her hands. "I got used to being the one people lean on. Somewhere along the way, no one leaned back." Ethan didn't interrupt. "I didn't plan on feeling seen that night," she added quietly. "But your girls, they see everything," he said. Their eyes met. The moment stretched. Not awkward, just honest. "I'm not looking for anything complicated," he said finally. "My life is full. So is mine." Another pause. "But," he added, "I'd like to see where this goes, slowly, if you do." Samantha's heart beat a little faster. "I do," she said. Later, as she was leaving, Grace peeked out from the hallway. "Are you coming back again?" she asked. Samantha crouched. "If you want me to." Grace nodded firmly. "We do," Lily added. "Daddy does too, he just doesn't know how to say it." Ethan cleared his throat loudly from the kitchen. Samantha laughed, standing. At the door, Ethan walked her out. "Thank you," he said, "for giving this a chance." "Thank you," she replied, "for not rushing it." He smiled, small, genuine. As she walked away, Samantha realized something else had changed. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of what might come next. Spring arrived without asking permission. It came in small ways, lighter mornings, longer evenings, the twins leaving their jackets behind without noticing.
Samantha became part of the rhythm before anyone named it that way. Sunday dinners, quick texts, shared silences that felt safe. Nothing dramatic happened, and that's what made it real. One afternoon, Samantha sat on the couch while Lily and Grace worked on a school project at the table. "Which one is your favorite?" Lily held up 2 colored papers. Samantha smiled. "Both." Grace looked up. "You always say that." "Because it's true," Samantha replied. Ethan watched from the kitchen doorway, something soft settling in his chest. Later, when the girls were outside, he sat beside Samantha. "They ask about you when you're not here. They plan things." Samantha nodded. "I do the same." A quiet moment passed. "I'm scared," Ethan admitted. She turned to him. "Me too." He took a breath. "But I don't want to be scared without you." Samantha felt the weight of his honesty and trusted it. "I'm not going anywhere," she said. That evening, Grace approached her with a serious expression. "If you stay, will you still be you?" she asked carefully. Samantha knelt to her level. "Yes." Grace considered this, then nodded. "Okay." Lily smiled. "Then we're good." As night settled, Samantha stood by the window, watching the twins chase each other in the fading light. Ethan joined her. "This wasn't how I imagined things," he said. She smiled. "Me neither." But it fit. Not because it was perfect, because it was chosen. Later, as Samantha walked home, she didn't feel the need to look back. She knew where she belonged, not in a place, but in a future being quietly built. And Valentine's Day, she realized, had never been about one night. It was about being remembered.